there is something in the Middle East happening between. We know we've learned from the new military pact or defense pact, if I can put it this way. Some people would argue it's the fifth, the Article 5 of NATO, because the way they were talking about between Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Pakistan, they're coming together and signing this new defense pact, or maybe we can call it security pact, somehow that way. And it seems that they wanted Egypt to be part of this. And recently, the news says that they provided Egypt with the false information, with the false intelligence, to see what would be the reaction on the part of. But El Sisi, they perceived that he's sharing the information with the United States. And then their perception came to the point that they don't, for the time being, they don't need Egypt to be part of this. And what is your understanding, Paul? There are two sort of concepts when it comes to the military pact. One of them, it says it's all about Iran, Yemen, and going against Iran and Yemen, and the Iranian sort of what acts of resistance, in, if we can put it this way. And the other one says, the other concept says it's against Israel and what Israel is trying to do in the West Asia. This is something new, Paul. We haven't seen this before this war started between Iran and the United States. This is something. Saudi Arabia was so confident, was so comfortable with the situation they were in before this war started, with the American base in their countries, not only in their countries, in other countries as well. So they felt that they're gonna have their buffer zone, or they're gonna have their security issues being addressed by the American base in their countries. Right now, you see this new move on the part of three major, in my opinion, Muslim countries. They're important. All of them are important. What is your understanding of that?
Well, I would be more comfortable about what it means if they had included Iran. Um, all of those countries are targeted by Greater Israel. We have to remember the two Israeli government ministers who, beginning last year in 2025, redefined the territory of Greater Israel, which originally was from the Nile to the Euphrates. And they said, no, now it's from the Nile to Pakistan. Now, I never knew whether that meant it included Pakistan or just stopped there. But we do know Saudi Arabia is included in Greater Israel. And we know from what the former Israeli prime minister told the American annual meeting of the American Jewish organizations in February, he said Turkey is the next Iran. So we know that the Israelis, Zionists, they have the target on Turkey, and we know they have it on Saudi Arabia. I'm not sure about Pakistan. So those countries at least should know that they have against them Israel, and that means the United States. So it's not conceivable, if the Saudis have any intelligence whatsoever, for Saudi Arabia to rely on American protection when Saudi Arabia is part of Greater Israel, and that the principal function of American foreign policy for 26 years has been to establish Greater Israel for Israel. And if the Turks are paying attention, then they know, as I do, what the former Israeli prime minister told the American Jewish organizations, that Turkey is the next target after Iran. So they have to know Turkey cannot rely on NATO. and Saudi Arabia cannot rely on Washington. And so one would say, okay, so they do realize they've got a common enemy, and they allied with Pakistan, which has nuclear weapons. So the alliance means something. It's not one where the Israelis and the Americans can threaten them with nukes without being threatened back. So that's one way of looking at it. On the other hand, Nima, it's entirely possible, just given the nature of political corruption, that all of this was organized by the United States against Iran and Yemen and Lebanon. It's entirely possible the Americans went in there and organized this to isolate the resisting forces, which is the Iranians, the Yemeni, and Hezbollah. I don't know what the answer is, but those are the two possibilities. One being part of the Muslim world is waking up. And if you will notice the combination, only the Saudis are Arabs. The Pakistanis aren't Arabs. The Turks aren't Arabs. So we've got three different ethnicities, racially unrelated, in an alliance. We don't know whether they realize the threat they face and they realize that America is their enemy because America is a puppet for Zionist Israel, or whether the Americans again have flummoxed them, gone with bags full of money, and bought an alliance to help constrain the resistors, which are few. I don't know the answer. Time will tell. If this alliance can hold together, we know that instantly, if this is not an American created alliance, Washington will go to work instantly trying to dissolve it. It will be doing everything to try to dissolve it. Whoever the strongest supporters in those countries of this alliance are, the Americans will target them, try to discourage them, maybe assassinate them. The Israelis will assassinate them. If this is not an American created alliance to constrain Iran, the Americans will work against it, and so will the Israelis. So we'll just have to see. That'll tell us if we see members of this alliance under attack, members who support this alliance in Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, and Turkey. We see them under attack or in difficulties, or we'll be able to know who formed it. At the moment, I haven't a clue.
Yeah, I think the way that we can learn about it is the way that they're reacting to Yemeni attack on Saudi Arabia. And we had the alliance between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan before. They didn't say a single word when it comes to the Yemeni attack on Saudi Arabia. They didn't confront it. And right now, right the same day that they signed the agreement, at the night, we've seen the Yemeni attack on Saudi Arabia again, and they didn't mention anything. There was no reactions on their part, on the part of Turkey and Pakistan. This is the other point, Paul, is Yemen, the way Yemen reacted to this, it was interesting to me. They said to Turkey, they said, "Do you think that if Israel attacks you, Saudi Arabia gonna help you? It's gonna be us, Yemen, helping you.
Yeah, yeah,
Not it's not gonna be Saudi Arabia,"
yeah.
which, by the way, is a valid point in my opinion. And
Yes, I agree. That's the valid point. I was going to make that point myself. It doesn't make any sense for Saudi Arabia to be carrying on a conflict with Yemen, because Yemen is an effective resistor of Israel, and Saudi Arabia is targeted by Israel. So it's nonsensical for the Saudis to be fighting with the Yemeni. This makes no sense. Uh, so if that continues, it suggests that this is an American arranged thing, in which it'll be a disaster for them because they are aligning with their enemy against their protectors. I I hope that the Iranians will be active in trying to organize relationships with the other targeted countries, and that we don't have another repeat of the Muslim countries being knocked off one by one. Iraq, Libya, Syria. Um, we'll have to see. I don't know. I don't know how successful Iran is being in its talks with Oman about control of the Strait of Hormuz. I don't know how successful it is with other Gulf states trying to convince them that they are allied with the wrong parties and that they need to be allied with Iran. If the Iranian diplomacy is able to take advantage of the fact that the Americans have proved unable to protect those countries, maybe the Iranians could form an alliance around the Persian Gulf, and then maybe that could be expanded. But I think for the Turkish, Pakistani, Saudi Arabia alliance to be successful or to mean anything about real change, it requires Iran as a member. And I think an alliance that complete with four large Muslim states, which have resources, I think that would bring a massive halt to the Zionist agenda of Greater Israel, because where can they go with it? Lebanon would be the only target for the Israelis. They can't possibly target Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, and Iran if they're in an alliance. So that would break up the Zionist agenda of Greater Israel, as would have an alliance between Iran, China, and Russia. That failed to materialize due to the inability of the three leaders to realize the situation. So I don't know to what extent the Turks, the Saudi Arabians, and the Pakistanis understand the real situation, or whether they think the danger is Yemen and Iran. In fact, I can't remember which of these countries are Sunni and which are Shia. I can't, and that may be playing the role. We've talked about it before. The Muslim schism goes back to the 7th century, so that may make any rational action impossible. I just don't know.
We
Maybe you
had
know. Maybe you know which country is which and whether they how
I
they
think
fit.
those borders that were defined for such a long time between Shia and Sunni they're just fading away, Paul. They're not there anymore. You can barely say who's, for example, Turkey is not that much Sunni in their policies or Shia in their policies, basically Muslim. When you see, I'm talking about the public opinion in Turkey. I'm not talking about the leadership. We know the leadership, the reaction, but I'm talking about the public opinion in Saudi Arabia, in Kuwait, in Bahrain, in Iran. Altogether, you don't see that much of borders being defined between the people, within the people, within the society. Those borders are fading away, which is so important. This is the outcome, Paul, of what has happened in Gaza, in Palestine. This is literally the outcome of what has happened there. And the point that you've mentioned, Paul, about Iran being part of this, it was mentioned, it was asked, one of the Turkish, reporters asked the Turkish foreign minister about what would be the conditions with Iran. He said that when Iran resolves its own problems in the region, and when it comes to contributing to constructive regional policies and entering a collective arena, their role is needed. And we always say this. Paul, there are huge ties between Iran and Turkey, and many people don't understand. It means that if, let's assume, tomorrow Erdogan decides to do something against Iran, I would say it's impossible. Knowing the texture of the society, knowing the power in Turkey, these are so connected. These two nations are so connected, even with Pakistan. And you see huge ties, huge cultural ties between the two nations. It's not about the Shia, Sunni. That's doesn't exist there anymore, in my opinion. But when it comes to Trump's policy, Paul, there are two options right now for him. We learned recently in the last 4 days, in the last week, that General Kane coming out talking about he needs some sort of off ramp. We've seen the reports on CNN, on Reuters. They're talking about ammunition, all these technical numbers about the military. And on the other hand, you see the case of the Strait of Hormuz, which is the most important issue right now. Wall Street Journal yesterday reported that Donald Trump, if he can open up the Strait of Hormuz fully, he's gonna declare victory and leave the region. This is what was mentioned yesterday in that article. And but that's not going to happen. The problem is that you see Iran is finalizing the talks with Oman, and they're coming out with a new mechanism for the Strait of Hormuz. They're defining new routes for the Strait of Hormuz. Those old routes are just not there anymore. They're redefining. Their technical teams are talking to each other. But Donald Trump and the United States is not part of those talks. Nothing. They don't know what's going on. Maybe Omanis are informing the United States. We don't know. But after all, there is no talks between the two sides, Iran and the United States. Their messages, they're receiving some messages from Pakistani government via Pakistani government. That's all. And it doesn't seem that anytime soon. I don't know if you saw the announcement or the statement of the Supreme National Security Council in Iran yesterday. They said basically they're connecting all these dots together: Palestine, Lebanon, Yemen, Iraq, all of them together with Iran, all of them together. Without a comprehensive sort of agreement, there would be no opening of the Strait of Hormuz. This is the difficulties that Donald Trump is in. What is your understanding of the situation right now?
Well, from your description, I would say that finally there's an awakening in the Middle East, that they can't rely on America, and that they have a determined enemy in the form of Israel. And so they're finally confronting reality. And it sounds like they're beginning to deal with it. So what we may see come out of this is that the Trump Israeli attack on Iran woke up the Muslim world and is producing finally some form of cooperation that leaves them in charge instead of outsiders. So if I was Trump, I think I would just say that I would apologize to Iran and say I was deceived and we made a mistake. And it's all over with as far as the United States is concerned. That would be the way to exit this conflict, to leave the Middle East in the hands of Middle Easterners, and without the United States remaining a permanent enemy who could suffer in various ways from oil flows going the wrong direction. I think that Trump can't win this as a military fight. And I think he would just have to say he made a mistake, and it was an unfortunate mistake, and he should have been more suspicious of Netanyahu. That would be a good thing, and it would certainly give the message to the Israelis that they were now alone in their agenda of Greater Israel. And if the Israelis realize that they no longer have Washington to create Greater Israel for them, they'll have to pull in their horns and find some way to adjust to the situation. It would no longer be one that they think they can control or continue to advance. So I would assume too that if this coming together of the Middle East, they may want to put Syria back together. And I think that that also requires the Americans to exit Syria. My understanding is they're still there, stealing the Syrian oil. I don't know if that's the case, but I haven't seen anything to the contrary. So we could see then a Middle East that's finally rid of external influence and control. You know, they've been under the French, the British, the Americans, the Israelis. And if they finally emerge, just making arrangements between themselves, then that'll be another power center in the world that helps to stabilize things.
There, we see that Donald Trump, part of you remember the first clause of the MOU was about Lebanon. And what they're doing right now, it seems that, as I've mentioned yesterday, the Supreme National Security Council in Iran mentioned that they want to all fronts. They want to put an end to the conflict on all fronts. It means Lebanon and Palestine. That here comes the solution of Donald Trump for Palestine, which the Board of Peace, as you know, they put out a document, a 15-point document, which was rejected by the Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday. He said that
Right.
I reject this. I insist on that rejection. Nobody can put pressure on me. And how do you see this sort of fight? It's not a fight. It's some sort of rhetoric. The two sides are, trying to convince each other that the path forward would be more. Donald Trump tries to say that this is 15-point plan going to work. Benjamin Netanyahu insisting that he's not going to accept that. How is that going to help him? Do you see the moment that Donald Trump says no to Benjamin Netanyahu and finally does something?
Um, it would be difficult because of the influence of the Israel lobby in American politics and everything else in America, media, everything. I personally think Palestine is gone. I think it's clear that Netanyahu intends the complete absorption of Palestine into Israel, all of it. They've said that, and I just don't think I don't think that Trump will be able to reverse that. I think Palestine's gone. It's too late to save Palestine. There's nothing left of it, hardly. It's not occupied. You know, the West Bank is hardly there at all, and the settlers are active in what's left. And the Israelis now, my understanding, occupy 70% of Gaza, and Netanyahu said it'll soon be 100. So Palestine, I think, is gone. I don't think the country can be resurrected out of the rubble and recreated. Uh, it, the Israelis have succeeded in stealing Palestine. I think, and I think that's what Netanyahu is making clear to Trump. This is ours now. You forget it. So what could Trump do? I don't really know. The, the Israelis use the money that Washington gives them to purchase the Congress. It's a money laundering. You know, Congress appropriates several billions of dollars every year to Israel, and Israel uses the money in campaign contributions to purchase the Congress. So it's a money laundering thing. And the Congress is dependent on this money for their political campaigns. Trump is heavily in bed with the Zionists. His whole government is. The media, the American media. So, the only thing Trump could do is what I already suggested. He would just have to say that the American attack on Iran was a mistake that he regrets. I think that would go a long ways to settling all the troubles, because this would be a statement that of non-interference by the United States in the Middle East. And this would be an actual constraint on Netanyahu. He would then have to come to terms with that. I think Trump getting into a fight with Israel over Palestine would be far less successful. He would just simply have to announce a withdrawal and an apology. And I think that would give the message to the Israelis that they've lost their American puppet, and therefore they're going to have to make some kinds of accommodation. And the whole agenda of Greater Israel has to be closed down. I don't think they'll give back Palestine. I don't think Palestine can be resurrected. Yeah, I think there are more Palestinians who live in refugee camps in Jordan and Lebanon than there are in Palestine. I think there are like 3 generations of these people. So it's too late to save Palestine. That's my view. I don't see any real way out for Trump other than to make an apology, because militarily he just doesn't have the option. we can't send the Navy in. We can't invade with troops. If we start the bombing again, then there'll be nothing left of any American bases. Saudi Arabia will suffer. Jordan will suffer. It will emphasize the impotence of the American military in that region. And this doesn't help Trump. You know, maybe he can make some kind of deal that the Americans will go as long as you open the strait. And then he can claim he got the strait opened. I think to be trusted, he has to say, we made a mistake. There was no reason for us to attack Iran. And that changes everything. And out of that would become an independent Middle East, and they'd have to solve their own problems among themselves. It would certainly defang Israel. And so Israel now would have to confront the unrealistic nature of Greater Israel. Now, a real leader would do that. And the question is whether Trump's a real leader. Because it's a situation that improves it for everybody, including the Israelis. Because the Greater Israel thing is nonsensical from the beginning. It's just a source of constant violence. And it's kind of run up against resistance that even with the American help, it doesn't crack and crumble. You know, we don't see the Yemen cracking. We don't see Iran cracking. I don't think Hezbollah is cracked. So there's a real resistance, and there doesn't seem to be any way around it. The hubris that Trump represents is dangerous to the whole world, and it's dangerous to America. And a step back from that would be a huge improvement in the security of the world and in the reduction of aggression. I think that if Trump makes that kind of an announcement that it was a mistake to attack Iran, it wouldn't be long before he'll say the same thing about Russia. It was a mistake for us to try to destabilize Russia with a war using Ukraine as our proxy. And you could get all this crazy stuff stopped. There are a lot of problems in the world that are working against everybody. Just the energy restrictions on Europe, it's strangling industry in Europe. It's strangling employment, comfort levels. These kinds of things have to be dealt with intelligence, and they can't just be blustered over. And the day of all of this flexing of fleets and tough words, this has to stop. It doesn't lead anywhere that's livable or positive in any way. And there's no excuse for the toleration of the Israeli violence. There's just no excuse for it. So it has to be stopped. And as long as Netanyahu thinks, we've got the Americans, they can't get away, we have very carefully tied down every American institution, and they're not even a sovereign country. As long as Netanyahu thinks that, then there's no constraint on Israel. So I vote for Trump waking up and saying, hey, this was a bad move. I'm sorry. We're out of it. And the world has changed in a good way. And I think this would save Trump's reputation. This would be seen as a great act of statesmanship, which is rare. And I think it's worth more than trying to force somebody to do what you want with military power or economic sanctions. Or I think it's much better for a person to admit mistakes and rectify the situation. And he becomes respected, admired. I think would save Trump's reputation. I don't think he has people in his government smart enough to explain that to him. And we've seen the exit of people like Tulsi Gabbard and Bondi, the kinds of people that had some sense. And we just don't have many of those in the Trump government. So who explains to him? And of course, the American media doesn't explain. The conservatives, they're no good at explaining. So we'll see. It may well be this new pact, if it's real, this Pakistan and Saudi Arabia Turkish pact. If this is real, it means it will grow. Because it has to, if it's real, and it's not an American orchestration, then maybe that's enough, Nima. It's a new development. Would have been very surprising a year or two ago, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And it's I suppose, a consequence of the mess that Trump and Israel have caused.